Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy.
Beserker, written by Ordinant. A term not many species in the galaxy have, so when it is mentioned by the few that do, translators get screwy. That's why, when I heard the word come from an older-looking Zwan during one of their stories, I was confused. Mainly due to the fact that I didn't know the meaning of the word, or how the Zwan would have even known it. So I approached him, to ask him if its meaning and listening to the story. I found a seat opposite the Zwan at his table, the sound of the bar seeming to grow hushed. Not many wanting to interrupt the story of an elder, even if this was a public place. I cleared my throat to speak, managing to find my voice in the deafening silence. Beserker? What does the word mean, Elder? The older Zwan took a moment, their 4 eyes blinking at different intervals as they focused onto me. The sight was a natural one that elders displayed when deep in thought, so I was fairly certain my answer was coming. What is the word, you ask? The elder spoke once again, his mandibles clacking together with each word. It could be considered similar to the word for warrior, fighter, or even indomitable. Perhaps it is best explained with a story. The elder lifted up a slim pipe and placed it between their mandibles, taking a deep breath before blowing out the purple haze. It was quite a while ago, so many cycles ago that you may not have even hatched. The elder's voice spoke, and it felt as if the story was playing through my mind. Human, you must escape. It is me they're after. The elder, who was far younger in this tale, was clutching a wound that bored deep into his lower torso, an exoskeleton fracture and burned. The human wasn't much better off, burn marks covering his upper torso and legs, his clothes in tatters from the run so far. They were both in an abandoned building, a bunker of sorts. The ground around them shaking from the explosions of the Itho blasted their way deeper. What a load of crap, Mirk! Leave you! The human wiped some blood from his chin, the sight causing Mirk great pain. He hated to see his friend in such a state, especially due to his own personal blood feud. Listen, Mirk, there's a ship nearby. We just need to make it there and get off the planet. The Itho won't have enough time to get back to their own ship before we've jumped halfway to the next system. The human, as damaged as he was, still had eyes that shone with vigor and determination. It was a rare sight, seeing so clearly the emotions of a human. Yet Mirk had spent years with this human, and had come to learn how to spot such emotions. Fine, let us go, my friend. One last wild run. Mirk rose to his feet, his damaged exoskeleton cracking further, causing him to wince. Walking would be nearly impossible, but he could manage. The human seemed to have a different idea. He easily lifted Mirk, grunting from it as he carried Mirk in what the humans would have considered a bridal carry, though to Mirk it was just being carried. Do you plan on carrying me the whole way? You won't make it. Shut it. We both know your body wouldn't last even halfway, so just hold on. The human bent down, his muscles visibly contracting. The body of the Deathworlder was still amazing to Mirk at times like this, even after so many years of knowing him. It was even more exhilarating once the human began running. It felt like they were flying by. It was amazing, otherworldly. But the fascination did not last long. A hail of plasma bolts came flying around them the moment that they exited the building, and the human pressed Mirk tight against his chest, bounding up the somewhat similar alien. The human gritted his teeth as time and time again plasma bolts slammed into his back, his thighs, his calves. Normally, plasma bolts felt like a summer day, but these newer tips burned with each hit, and he could feel his legs wanting to give out. Just as thoughts entered his mind, the ship came into view. Right there. It was right there. Even so, the human, the mighty human who had shielded Miek throughout the entirety of the run before this, began to stumble. He caught himself just barely as he fell to a knee. The ship was before them, and even closer was a growing number of Aether mercenaries blocking the path. Miek, make it to the ship. There is an onboard medical assistant robot meant exactly for these types of getaways. The human's voice was unwavering, and he slowly lowered Miek to his feet. Miek, however, couldn't believe his ears. This sounded as if the human didn't believe that he could make it. Miek began to raise his voice in protest, but the human shot him a single, cold glare. For the moment his mandibles clicked together. Go! I'll clear the way. You just have to make it into the ship. Ready? The last word was what contained any other emotion besides determination. And that single word remained the human Miek had known for so long. Miek couldn't say anything in protest. Even now, the mercenaries were still firing, each shot bringing the human closer and closer to death. He had to act. He had to act now. I'm ready. Let's do this. I'll see you on the ship, Miek said, even now still hopeful. His mind so far off from the wound still burning against his chest. The human took a deep breath, rose to his fullest. Both the human and Miek broke into dead sprints forwards. However, it wasn't even a contest. It looked like the human was a blur, and as he crashed into the mercenaries blocking the path, he unleashed a battle cry. It rocked the surroundings as if a great explosion had gone off. Miek and the mercenaries were all stunned by it, but Miek gathered himself faster. He ran as fast as his wounded legs could carry him, ignoring the pain. He ran and ran, all while the sounds of plasma bolts hitting flesh began again. The sound was accompanied by that screams of the limbs being torn off as Miek reached the ship, lowered the staircase to enter the bridge. He turned back, and his heart sank. He saw the human, his friend, for so long, surrounded on all sides by one of the Aether mercenaries. The human's body was covered in blood, both his own and the Aether's, and yet he continued to fight, not once looking back. Miek heard the human's voice echo in his mind, and yet he couldn't just leave, not as he recalled everything the human had done. His friend was buying time for his escape, but Miek had other plans. But they were crazy, the type of crazy that came from being with friends with the Deathworlder. He ran into the ship and powered it up. However, he bypassed the engines powering up and went for the weapons. These were meant for ship-to-ship combat, and firing them into a crowd would vaporize the Aether mercenaries. He swiveled the turret, aiming it down at the brawl that was steadily turning in favor of the mercenaries, even though the human still crushed the ribcage of one and destroyed the skull of another. Miek grabbed the comms device and turned the outside speakers on. My friend, you better survive this. Miek's voice was hoarse as he yelled. The human turned for a moment, gazing at the ship and then the turret that loomed above him. Then the human smiled. Even while the Aether mercenaries were stunned in fear, the human seemed pleased. Miek was afraid. He didn't know if this would kill his friend. He had no real experience with ship weapons. He steeled himself and hit the trigger. And in the same moment the human willed every fiber of his being to move, even as his legs were charred, stabbed, and slashed. He took one step, and then managed to throw himself forwards as the massive ball of plasma collided with the ground, obliterating a part of the docking bay alongside the mercenaries. Smoke billowed up from the destruction, and Miek looked around the area, looking everywhere he could through the cameras the ship had for any view of his friend. Nothing. Where is he? Miek could feel his chest tightened, his wound beginning to grow worse and worse as his mental state slipped. It was then that a bloody hand was placed on Mirk's shoulder. Mirk swiveled around in his chair and saw a battered and bruised human standing above him, that same crazy smile playing across his lips. "Hell of a shot, Mirk." The elder took another blow off of his pipe, his mandibles clicking together as he finished speaking. The bar was silent, as was I. We were stunned. Humans were known to be durable, but to survive all of that, it was, otherworldly. Impossible. The elder let out a smoke once again and met my stunned gaze. "Beserker, in its most raw description of my people, is another word for human." End of story.
The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Alithia, Barky, Futic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Onholtz, White Band 420, Lord Asrakal, Arcalian, and Oakfield.